the 404 Narcissist. As users of the internet, you will be familiar with the concept of the HTTP 404, or 404 not found, 404 error, page not found, file not found, or server not found, error message. This is a hypertext transfer protocol standard response code in computer network communications to indicate that the browser was able to communicate with a given server, but the server couldn't find what was requested. The website hosting server will typically generate a 404 not found web page when a user attempts, for instance, to follow a broken or dead link. And therefore the 404 error is one of the most recognizable errors encountered on the internet. This is also applicable to narcissists, and the concept is where you come across the 404 narcissist. We don't have any emotional empathy, none whatsoever. It is completely absent from us, and you can't inject it into us. Some of us, though, have cognitive empathy, which means that we have learned, through the way that our narcissism operates, to instinctively and with higher echelon narcissists in a calculated manner to gauge responses so that we can then portray particular reactions to enable us to fit in, to assert control, to draw fuel, etc. Therefore, we recognize that this is a position of requiring sympathy, so we respond in an appropriate manner. It might be an instance where we should look concerned, that we should look happy, that we should look elated, that we should look fondly and kindly, that we should look lovelorn. And therefore our narcissism accords with the appropriate words, tone, facial expression, looking in our eyes, body language and gesture to create, to manufacture, to fabricate the appropriate emotion. Why? Because the emotion is not felt. We do not feel happiness. We don't feel joy. We give a representation of that accorded as a consequence of the provision of fuel and the necessity of the circumstances. Some narcissists are very, very effective at that. Take me, for example. I, as a consequence of the way that my narcissism has evolved and my intellect and ability, and also partly because of what I do professionally, am to be the ultimate chameleon, to enable me to blend in, to look like I am of you, and to behave in manners which are acceptable, if I so choose to deploy them, of course. If you wish to understand more about this, listen to the very important video, The Imitation Game. And therefore some of our brethren are very effective at the portrayal that is required. Sometimes there's a disconnect, and therefore the response is not entirely commensurate with the situation. The narcissist laughs in a situation where laughter is inappropriate, or the laughter doesn't sound quite right, and therefore that's misfired. But in other instances, and this is where you experience the 404 narcissist, there is no response whatsoever. You are met with a blank look. The situation requires a response. The narcissism goes looking for that response, only to find an empty shelf in the warehouse of the various responses appertaining to this particular narcissist. Because there is nothing there to begin with, because there is no feeling, there is no appropriate response waiting on the shelf, and the relevant picker that has gone to select this finds itself without an answer, and therefore must return to the front of the narcissist, if you will, to front of house, empty-handed, and therefore the narcissism cannot offer anything to the narcissist in terms of this is how you should be responding at this moment in time. You should be putting your hand on this person and making sympathetic noises, but we don't have that in our repertoire. A 404 error has occurred. The situation presented to the narcissist requires a particular response, but the narcissist doesn't have that response available. And it is not just a case of it being a response that doesn't quite fit. There's no response whatsoever. And that is what is going on. The narcissist doesn't know how to respond because there is no emotional empathy causing an instinctive response, and the narcissism, which fills in for the absence of emotional empathy by creating a manufactured response, isn't evolved sufficiently to even mimic the appropriate response, to create a facsimile of it. And therefore, you receive this 404 response, which is a blank look. So in instances where you might have fallen down and you would think the narcissist would immediately go, "Ooh, careful," there's nothing. And he looks at you, face blank, eyes dead, mouth straight. And it is then that you have to prompt the narcissist, "I need some help." "Ah, that computes." "Oh, right, okay." And the narcissist then provides you with that assistance. More usually, the narcissist would receive your request for help as a threat to control and we would be dismissive. "What are you doing down there then? What's the matter with you? What are you crying for?" And that is the follow-up to the 404 response. You get nothing from the narcissist to begin with because there is nothing to provide you with. And then when you highlight that, the narcissist must deflect, blame shift, withdraw, whatever it takes to reject that challenge to control. You will come across the 404 narcissist repeatedly, dependent upon the type of narcissist that you are dealing with. The 404 response is prevalent with lower lesser, middle lesser, slightly less so with upper lesser A and upper lesser B. And invariably, you make the mistake of just thinking this individual just doesn't care and is dismissive. And you're partially right about that, but it's something far more intrinsic and deeper than that. What it means is, because there is a complete absence of emotional empathy with this individual, and they haven't evolved to be able to provide you with the correct response, you don't get anything at all. Just tumbleweed, blowing down the emptiness of what the narcissist truly is. Lower mid-rangers are also prone to the provision of a 404 response. It's less common with middle range A and B. It might happen very occasionally, ditto with upper mid-range, very occasionally, and you'll never see it with the greater or the ultra, because we have evolved. The only time that you might get a blank response from a greater or an ultra is where that is actually intended for the purposes of provoking you. The 404 response is more about those lower echelon narcissists and is the complete absence of being able to provide you with any kind of response. Ordinarily, the narcissism fabricates it on behalf of the narcissist so that the narcissist fits in, behaves in an appropriate way, doesn't suddenly flag up on the radar as being unusual or strange. It enables the assertion of control. It enables the drawing of fuel. But there are instances where you get absolutely nothing back. And that is the 404 narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.